I've been a weirdo who enjoys weird movies from a very young age. I first saw Rocky Horror Picture Show when I was 7. I was so enthusiastic about it, I talked about it to all of my friends at school the next day and ended up having to see a school counselor. But my parents always encouraged me to be a weirdo. That was why, when I was about 12, my mother told me about a movie that was going to be starting on television. It was sort of like Rocky Horror in that it was a 70s musical, and it would also play off my interest in Phantom of the Opera. It was something that I should definitely check out around Halloween. I was riveted to the screen, watching that movie until late in the night. Since then, I've watched that movie every single Halloween. That film was Brian De Palma's Phantom of the Paradise. I wanted to take some time to talk about this movie and how it impacted not just me, but cult movies in general. A brief synopsis. Phantom of the Paradise is if Phantom of the Opera had a three-way with Faust and Dorian Gray, while hard rock played in the background. What? That's not enough of an explanation for you? I feel it's pretty clear. But if you absolutely must know, here's the story of Phantom of the Paradise. There will be spoilers in this, but the movie is 45 years old. I will put the time code here if you'd like to skip ahead. A longer synopsis. Phantom of the Paradise is the story of Winslow Leach, a brilliant but down-on-his-luck musician who is working on a pop cantata adaptation of Faust. He plays piano at a club called the Majestic, mostly as a way to get the audience to leave after seeing the Juicy Fruits, a popular 50s nostalgia band managed by the mysterious music impresario Swan. Swan is in the process of opening up a rock palace called the Paradise, and he's looking for the perfect music to usher it in. He overhears Winslow and decides his cantata is perfect, but not Winslow himself. His lackey Philbin preys on Winslow's naivete, and they steal his music. Realizing that he needs to confront Swan, Winslow breaks into his mansion. While there, he discovers they are auditioning female vocalists for Faust. Winslow is charmed by a young woman named Phoenix. Ultimately, he loses track of her, and Swan has him framed for drug possession. Winslow goes to jail, and after being experimented on in prison and forced to hear his music butchered, he snaps. He breaks out of prison and tries to destroy all of Swan's businesses. While he is trying to blow up a record press, he has his face mangled in the machine and is shot by a security guard. While everyone believes him to be dead, Winslow is horrifically scarred and rendered mute. He goes to the Paradise, now on the verge of opening, and dons an owl-like mask to become the titular Phantom. Winslow terrorizes the Paradise as the Phantom, including setting off explosives at a performance of the Beach Bums, the Juicy Fruits now acting as a 60s surf band. Swan, who records everything in the Paradise, realizes it's Winslow and offers him the chance to finish his cantata as he wants. Phoenix shows up at the auditions, and Winslow agrees he will finish Faust as long as she's allowed to sing it. Swan uses his sound engineering knowledge to grant Winslow the ability to speak and sing again. He signs Winslow to a lifetime contract in blood and puts him to work composing. However, Swan thinks Phoenix's perfection is an affront to his own and instead casts a flamboyant glam rocker named Beef in the main role. Winslow is infuriated when Swan attempts to trap him after he's finished the cantata. He escapes and threatens Beef's life. While Beef doesn't want to perform, he's pressured into it by Philbin and goes on stage along with the Undead, the Juicy Fruits and Beach Bums now performing as a glam rock band. Winslow electrocutes Beef on stage, thrilling the audience and intriguing Swan. Knowing Winslow will attack again if he does not get his way, Phoenix is sent onto the stage to sing and becomes a sensation. Winslow tries to warn Phoenix of Swan's machinations, but she's too enamored of the crowd and rebuffs him. Winslow sees Swan seduce Phoenix and decides to commit suicide. When Winslow stabs himself, he finds himself unable to die. Swan reveals the contract Winslow signed was supernatural in nature, and he's unable to die without Swan's permission. Swan is also under contract and completely impervious to harm. For the finale of Faust, Swan decides to marry Phoenix on stage, but has arranged to assassinate her during the ceremony, deciding the true entertainment is the horror of tragedy. Winslow uncovers the truth about Swan. He sold his soul to the devil for immortality. He films himself constantly so the footage will age in his place. He's also become an agent for the devil himself, signing unwitting musical acts into demonic contracts. Not only does he own Winslow's soul, but Phoenix's as well. Winslow burns the film, rendering Swan mortal once again. During the finale of Faust, he attacks the stage and stabs Swan. Swan's body is carried off by the out-of-control crowd, while Winslow's stab wounds open up again, and he crawls towards Phoenix in his death throes. Confused by what's happening, Phoenix finally realizes the Phantom was Winslow, and she cradles him as he dies. I mean, I'd say you don't have to watch it now, because I did just give you a synopsis of the whole movie, But the plot is only part of what makes this movie worth watching. The story. I would say there are two reasons this movie is worth watching, and that's Brian De Palma and Paul Williams. Honestly, that's a very simplistic answer, but it's also pretty true. When I told him I was making this video, my friend David asked me, what is Brian De Palma's career anyways? And that's not an unfair question. I don't think you immediately know what you're going to get when you hear, this is a Brian De Palma movie, aside from striking shots with often a very nice split screen, and this movie is no exception. Done fairly early in his career, this film was born from an elevator ride in 1969. De Palma heard the Beatles' A Day in the Life playing as Muzak, and it made him think of how great rock was taken and commercialized and repackaged as a hollow shell of itself. This was combined with his own frustrations with the Hollywood system, in which he was still struggling to make a name for himself. When you look at the poster for this film, you would be forgiven for thinking it was nothing but a 1970s remake of The Phantom of the Opera, but an homage is not the same thing as a remake. The similarities are all very superficial. There's a phantom terrorizing a music venue, obsessed with a female singer. The Phantom's obviously the Phantom. Phoenix is Christine, and you can make further parallels with Beef as Carlotta and his electrocution being the fall of the chandelier. In Phantom of the opera they were performing was even Faust, but those are kind of the end of the similarities, and I don't think they really stand up to scrutiny. Phoenix has very little interaction with the Phantom, only having a brief conversation on the roof of the Paradise, while Christine is abducted by her Phantom for an extended period of time and forced to do his bidding. Phoenix has a lot more agency. She makes bad decisions, but they are her decisions. Except when she was high when she signed the contract to sell her soul. Wait, is it still legally binding if you're under the influence? What's the legality of selling your soul anyways? While Winslow's not completely innocent, he is certainly a victim in a way Eric wasn't. Despite his violent temper, Winslow was a naive and innocent man who tried to see the best in people. He allows Philbin to just take his music, and he trusts Swan even after he's destroyed his life. He doesn't even realize he's fallen into a Faustian deal, even when he's dedicated his life to writing about Faust. He will see the best in everyone until he's driven to the point of blinding rage. This rage is brought out by Swan. He is the factor that really sets this apart from Phantom of the Opera. Swan is sort of a combination of Raoul and the managers of the opera house. He's in opposition to the Phantom, but unlike Raoul, it's not a heroic opposition. Swan intentionally enrages Winslow because it entertains him. He also has a line about how he abhors perfection in anyone but himself. He believes Faust is the perfect music for the Paradise, and because of that, he's trying to destroy the man who's creating it. Swan's romantic interest in Phoenix is also only there so he can further destroy Winslow and corrupt Phoenix. Phantom of the Paradise serves as a tribute to Phantom of the Opera rather than any sort of rip-off or copy. It's the type of creativity that should be encouraged in transformative works. Like I said in my short synopsis, it's not just the Phantom of the Opera. It's the Phantom of the Opera mixed with Faust and a picture of Dorian Gray. There actually does exist a novelization of an early draft of the script that doesn't have the Faust or Dorian Gray elements. I have not read it, as it is pretty expensive. If you have a copy that you don't want, please send it to me. I've read the synopsis and it sounds terrible, but I do still want it. Yes, terrible. While Phantom provides the bones, this movie can't exist without Faust and Dorian Gray as well. Phantom of the Opera is the skeleton, Faust is the musculature, and Dorian Gray is the skin containing everything. Faust was the original opera in Phantom of the Opera, making it a natural element to bring into a Phantom of the Opera send-up. But it also makes sense when viewing this movie as a commentary on the entertainment industry corrupting artists. For a creative person working alongside a corporation who doesn't care about your artistic vision can feel like selling your soul. Indeed, the original tagline for this movie was, "He sold his soul for rock and roll," not, "He sold his soul for a woman." Winslow makes his deal with Swan so Faust will be performed the way he wants it. Phoenix just happened to be a part of that bargain. Even after making that deal, he never does get Faust performed the way he wants it, and it eventually costs him his life. The Dorian Gray aspect may seem the most tenuous when you look at the story, but I think it's vital. Swan is made immortal and ageless due to his deal with the devil. He is a living embodiment of the corruption and decadence of the entertainment industry. Winslow can't destroy him because it's impossible to destroy a monolith like that. In the beginning narration, he's introduced like this. Swan. He has no other name. His past is a mystery, but his work is already a legend. At the end of the introduction, he's called the monster who stole it. Oh, that narration. It always gives me chills. No one will ever narrate like Rod Serling. From the very beginning of the movie, Swan is dehumanized. It is no surprise that in an early draft he was named Spectre, both to make him a ghost to match the Phantom and as a reference to Phil Spector. Yikes. This dehumanization is reinforced by not seeing him after the Juicy Fruits performance. He's more of a phantom than the Phantom is. He's even called the Devil in the short interstitial music piece as Winslow approaches Swanage. While Swan is supposed to be a normal man, albeit one who sold his soul to the devil, he's presented to us as the devil as well. We actually see the devil making his deal with Swan, and the devil appears as him. I actually have a theory that the Swan we see throughout the movie is really the devil, that when we see Swan make his deal, the devil possesses him. If you compare the suicidal Swan who makes the deal to the one we see throughout the movie, they have very little in common. However, the devil in the mirror perfectly matches what we see from Swan. This also fits as to why Swan sabotages his own work. He acts like he cares about opening the paradise, but in truth he just cares about causing pain to Winslow Phoenix and causing chaos in the people he lures into the paradise, reveling in the entertainment they gain from the public deaths. This brings us to the final element that brought the storytelling of this movie together. Paul Williams has stated that his favorite line is, "An assassination live on television, coast to coast, now that's entertainment." The grisly nature of each performance escalates. It starts out with mimed harakiri, then a bomb in a car, then an electrocution on stage, and finally the massacre in the finale, which leads to the deaths of Philbin, Swan, and Winslow. That these horrific events should be something to be viewed for fun is a commentary on the televised nature of tragedy, starting in 1963 with the assassination of President Kennedy, then growing with the war in Vietnam. But I said it was the final element, but there's actually an important one I've missed, and I think it needs to be in its own section. The music. The story would truly come together when Paul Williams was brought into the project. This is also the main reason why my summary cannot do this movie justice. At the time, Williams was a songwriter whose work was more famous for being done by other people than it was by him. He wrote songs that were done by Tiny Tim, Three Dog Night, The Carpenters, The Monkees, and others. He did consistently come out with work, but they usually got more popular when done by other people. He was also Virgil in Battle for the Planet of the Apes. In order for the movie to work, a wide variety of music was needed. It's something more complicated than, I need someone who can write music suited for a 50s doo-wop band and a 70s glam rock band. Certainly that's an element, and Paul Williams was very capable of doing it. My friend might have asked, what is Brian De Palma's career? But we could actually ask the same thing about Paul Williams. On top of the acts I've already mentioned him doing stuff for, the man eventually earned an Oscar for writing the lyrics to Evergreen for Barbra Streisand's A Star is Born. He co-wrote The Muppets' Rainbow Connection, he did the lyrics to The Love Boat, and he's worked with Daft Punk. Honestly, I could probably make this whole video why Paul Williams is chaotically awesome, but his eclectic talents are actually an important aspect of the movie. Not only do we have several different bands performing, we have several different bands performing the same songs. The song Faust is really indicative of this. It stands out as the leitmotif of the movie. It's the song that attracts Swan to Winslow's music. We first hear it performed by him after the Juicy Fruits sing. At the time, it's just a performance, lacking the true depth of the song. Hearing Phoenix practice it is what attracts Winslow to her, and a snippet of the Juicy Fruits performance of it over the radio causes Winslow to snap and escape prison. As the song is originally intended, it's a heartfelt song about the title character's motivations. It's a desperate plea as the singer offers up his soul in order to get the love he knows would fulfill him. Then it's completely and utterly eviscerated when it's repackaged as the Beach Bums Upholstery. They're the same songs. It's just one is a plaintive rock ballad and the other one is Bubblegum Surfer Pap. While the lyrics have small snippets in common, in Upholstery, it's now about a man in his car. In Faust, I swore I'd sell my soul for one love who would stand by me. And in Upholstery, carburetors, man. That's what life is all about. Okay, I'm not singing again in this video, and I will never sing again. I'm so sorry. Swan literally removes the soul of Faust in the reinvention of the song for the Beach Bums. It is still a bop, though. The final incarnation of the song is when Winslow performs it so Swan can engineer a voice for him. It's fitting that Swan's idea of perfection is his own voice coming from Winslow. This version of the song is the most truthful version of it. It's done by Winslow right before he signs the contract with Swan, and he becomes Faust himself. As he sings, I'd sell my soul for one love, who would sing my song and fill this emptiness inside me. Yeah, I'm not gonna sing again. There are some musical curiosities with Somebody Super Like You and Life at Last. These are songs performed by the Undead and Beef during the first night of Faust. Neither of these feel like any of the other songs Winslow's written. They also don't reference Faust at all, but instead riff on Frankenstein. However, I think that's the point. Winslow is writing his music for Phoenix, and when Beef gets them, he doesn't want to perform them because they're scored for a chick. Swan tells him to change it and make it his. Philbin then lays out the thesis statement on the ruinization of art.
Nobody cares what anything's about.
Is that right?
Who the hell listens to lyrics anyway?
Dry up, Tubbo.
These songs don't fit with anything we've heard before because they're not supposed to. They've been destroyed so much they no longer resemble anything musically we've seen before, or even align with the story they're supposed to be a part of. Nothing means anything anymore. The reference to Frankenstein is allegorical of the music being torn apart and repurposed in a way that's unnatural. But they're also bops. Damn it, I love the music in this movie. It was actually nominated for an Oscar for the music, but lost to The Great Gatsby. The songs that truly speak to the soul of the movie are Beauty and the Beast and, well, Old Souls. Faust is a song written by a man who is writing about Faust. Beauty and the Beast and Old Souls are written by a man who is Faust. They are both two sides of the same coin. Old Souls is actually fairly optimistic. It's a song about reincarnation and two souls being bound together in eternal love. It's Winslow wanting to believe he doesn't have to sell his soul for Phoenix's love because his soul is already tied to hers. Beauty and the Beast, fittingly also known as Phantom's theme, is the more cynical. He sees himself as the beast. Rather than Old Souls last forever, it's I defend my soul from those who would accuse me. That these songs should complement and contrast each other fits with the theme of duality that runs through this movie. Winslow is split between an innocent man exploited by Swan and the monstrous Phantom. The Phantom and Swan both serve as antagonists in their own way. Phoenix is the ingenue, but also someone who's quickly corrupted by the decadence of Swan. While the music is an important element of the movie, it's part of a performance within the movie. This is called diegetic music. This means the characters are supposed to be performing in a musical number and aren't just singing to convey their feelings. For example, the songs in Grease are non-diegetic. The characters aren't performing, but exist in a musical world where deep emotion is portrayed through musical performance. That's not the case in Phantom of the Paradise. The music is performed on stage for an audience, and the singing is not a natural form of communication. That's not to say there's not a magical element of the music in this movie. I think it's interesting to note that after Phoenix sings Old Souls, the musical performances abruptly stop. 9 songs occur in the first 2/3 of the movie, which is roughly a song every 5 minutes. Then the last third, there's nothing but incidental music. This is also when the supernatural elements of Swan's Faustian deal come into the plot. It's as if Swan steals the music from the movie as he stole it from Winslow. Or maybe the pacing's really messed up. That's also possible. The movie does end super abruptly. The production. That this movie got made at all is a testament to the creativity of the people behind it. I believe the only problem they didn't have was a phantom terrorized the production. I won't go into all of the details, as it would take a very long time, and they've already been chronicled very well. I suggest you check out the Swan Archive, which is the most comprehensive guide to the Phantom of the Paradise. There is also a documentary on the Blu-ray entitled Paradise Regained. But I would be remiss if I did not mention the Swan Song incident. As filmed, Swan's company was known as Swan Song Enterprises. Everything had already been filmed when Led Zeppelin formed a record company known as Swan Song Records. Peter Grant, Zeppelin's manager and overseer of Swan Song, was not happy about the Phantom of the Paradise using the same name. This was made even worse by the fact he'd represented Stone the Crows. He felt Beef's death was a tacky reference to the death of lead singer Leslie Harvey, who was fatally electrocuted due to a microphone not being earth-grounded. In order to appease Grant, scenes needed to be cut down and mats hand-painted in to cover the offending signs. That loss struck a blow to this film. However, the essence of its purpose remains. Swan is ever present throughout the film. He is in control of everything, and I do mean everything. He owns every environment seen throughout the film. Obviously, he's in control of the Paradise, his rock palace, and it's implied he also owns the Majestic. We also see Death Records and his estate, the Swanage. The only place we see that's not owned by Swan is Sing Sing, but even that is in his grasp as the Swan Foundation funds their operations. When we see Winslow in prison, he's wearing a hat that actually has Swan Foundation on it. Swan rules this world. This is a 70s movie, and this is present in the aesthetic. But by including larger numbers by the Juicy Fruits and the Beach Bums, both representing the decades before, it muddies the waters in terms of the time period. The sets and the props are also so over the top it makes it seem somewhat otherworldly. Two of the most impressive over-the-top set pieces are Swan's record-shaped desk, which is so badass until you think about tiny Paul Williams having to crawl over to get into it. The other and more iconic piece is the Tonto synthesizer Swan has Winslow play. This is a very real, one-of-a-kind, multi-timbral, polyphonic, analog synthesizer. And if you thought I had to write that out phonetically, you'd be correct, and probably still butchered it. Musicians, comment below and feel free to drag me. The equipment looks unreal, which again contributes to the movie having a fantastic quality, even before we get into the Faustian deals. But talking about Faustian deals, look at those gorgeous contracts. Winslow, even if you weren't signing in blood, you should have known the devil was behind that penmanship. Many of these things can be attributed to production designer Jack Fisk. He would work with De Palma again later in Carrie, as would the set dresser, although she would take on a different role in that movie, as in the title one. Yeah, it was Sissy Spacek. The most prominent motif in the production are birds. Death Records is symbolized by a dead sparrow. The Phantom's mask evokes an owl, a bird of prey that hunts in the dark. The final performance of Faust is full of scantily clad raven women. This, of course, extends to the naming of the characters Swan and Phoenix. What does that mean? Honestly, I don't know. But it looks great. That Phantom helmet, #cosplay goals. I actually have a pattern for it, and I meant to make it for this year, but I was too busy writing stuff like this, and Halloween has kind of been a bust this year, so it'll have to wait. Of course, a movie is nothing without its cast, and Phantom of the Paradise has a great one. In the titular role is the late William Finley. He was one of Brian De Palma's most frequent collaborators. Finley was known for playing disturbed and creepy roles, and none of that is present in this performance. As Winslow, he comes off as nebbish and adorable, completely naive, with a simmering temper that only comes out when he snaps. While the leather-clad, beaked helmet-wearing Phantom is menacing, even at his darkest, he's got a tragic melancholy to him. Most of his face is covered, and you can still see the heartbreak on his face as he watches Swan seduce Phoenix. The Phantom physically has to be an imposing figure, but he has to have a deep soul, which Finley imbues him with. This is not a Phantom like the original Gaston Leroux novel. He's a tragic hero, and while not blameless due to a psychosis, he is not the monster named in the original narration. That's Swan, played by Paul Williams. When he and De Palma were discussing the music, De Palma decided Williams should also act in the movie. For a brief time, the idea of him playing the Phantom was thrown around. But there was a problem.
I was going to thank all the little people and... Then I remembered I am the little people.
5'1" Paul Williams wasn't going to be doing much intimidating in a mask. He does play the Phantom in a fashion, providing the singing voice for Winslow post-accident. But Winslow's true role is as Swan, and bless him for being that short, because the dichotomy between the lanky Phantom and the diminutive Swan contributes to the duality within this film. The Phantom is tall and physically imposing, but he's an innocent with bad social skills. Swan is small, and he never gets his hands dirty, at least until the end when he's full of desperation. He's charming and manipulative. He has Napoleonic air to him. Paul Williams is a bird-themed villain. I think it works. The psychological aspects of Swan's character are also really interesting. He's sold his soul to the devil and is presumably making deals and snaring others in order to maintain that deal. Yet, as is fitting for a Faustian bargain, he doesn't really get what he wants. While he can remain young forever, Swan had lamented having to look in the mirror and seeing himself getting older. But he's unable to see himself in any pictures as anything other than the aging monstrosity. He also suffers from frustration stemming from his vanity. His entire life is dedicated to destroying other people. But before that, Swan was a musician. He's someone who wanted perfection in himself, but he threw his talents away in favor of corrupting others, becoming jaded about the music industry. The woman between the Phantom and Swan is Jessica Harper. Harper hadn't acted in a movie before, being found by De Palma in a play in New York. She is able to capture the idea of both the wide-eyed ingenue and the sassy, self-possessed woman. Her part is much smaller than either Winslow or Swan, serving as more of a goal to be reached, but she does a good job in the performance, and her singing is beautiful. Old Souls and Special to Me are both great demonstrations of her singing prowess in different ways. Of the supporting characters, the most memorable is Beef, played by another frequent collaborator of De Palma and member of the Q Continuum, Garrett Graham. Beef can be described in one word: beef. He has less screen time than any of the other characters, but what he has is memorable. From the very moment he arrives on screen until he's taken out, he takes over. Fitting for him filling the Carlotta role, he's a prima donna. He represents the new style of glam rock music. He's given an ambiguous sexuality. While at times he can be very macho, he can also be effeminate. He is such a fun character that it's clear why he would infuriate Winslow to the point of electrocuting him on stage. The Juicy Fruits, Beach Bums, and Undead are played by Archie Hahn, Jeffrey Cominor, and Harold Oblong, with each actor taking the lead singing duties on one of their songs. This creates an interesting commentary on the interchangeability of music. Like Philbin says, no one cares what anything's about anymore. These guys have no artistic integrity, allowing Swan to mold them however he likes. They even remain with him after being nearly blown up by the Phantom. The film. With all of these elements, Phantom of the Paradise comes together. None of them could be missing and have it be the same film. It's not only a good movie, it's a brilliant one. It contains many of the hallmarks of De Palma, an auteur who at the time was at the beginning of his career. Williams's music showcases the talent that will earn him multiple awards. The acting is great, the design is fantastic. So of course it bombed. It opened October 31st, 1974, and no one had any idea what to do with it, and it disappeared pretty much as quickly as it appeared. Except, and here's where things get weird, in Winnipeg, Manitoba. I won't dive too deeply into this because, well, somebody already has. Documentarian Malcolm Ingram's made a movie last year called The Phantom of Winnipeg that extensively covers Phantom's enduring legacy in that city. I haven't seen it myself, as it's only played at a few film festivals and hasn't been released on streaming yet. You would think there would be a reason for this very specific location sparking to the movie, but the truth is, nah, not really. It's just one of those mysteries of the ages, like what happened to Amelia Earhart, and how do they get the caramel into the caramel bar? And yes, I chose to make a very Canadian reference, very purposefully. If I were to guess why it became so popular in Winnipeg, it would be that someone in charge of the Garrick Theatre just happened to really like it. It played there for 18 weeks and returned to the screen several times until 1976. But even outside of Winnipeg, Phantom would maintain a cult following. The time was ripe for cult movies, specifically musicals. There is one that's spoken of often in the same breath as Phantom. We have to get into it. I See You Shiver in Anticipation. The Rival. One of the things that compelled me to do this is drag queen Trixie Mattel appeared on the show Movie Bitches and claimed Phantom of the Paradise was a sequel to Rocky Horror Picture Show. Yeah, it's things like this that made me root for Shangela. I'm kidding, and if anybody sends this to Trixie and she happens to watch this 20 minutes in, I was not coming for you. But she's not the only one to have this misconception, and as a fan of Phantom of the Paradise, I felt compelled to add this section. I wanted to cover, first of all, why Phantom of the Paradise and Rocky Horror are so often conflated, and why we really shouldn't. First of all, Phantom of the Paradise is in no way a sequel to Rocky Horror. Brian De Palma came up with the story in 1969, and filming began in November 1973. The Rocky Horror Show, the original stage production, had only begun running in August 1973. Rocky Horror Picture Show itself would not be released until 1975, where the only place Phantom of the Paradise was still showing was in Winnipeg. The reason these two movies are so entwined is due to them both being distributed by 20th Century Fox. Neither of these films did terribly well upon initial release, but they developed cult followings. Because of that, Fox decided to do the only logical thing when you have two horror-based musicals, and that's science fiction double feature picture show. The movies were released together as late-night double billings, and this melded the idea that they were connected in people's minds. This connection was strengthened when, in 1981, Jessica Harper replaced Susan Sarandon in the role of Janet for Rocky's sequel, Shock Treatment. But that's kind of as far as any connection between them goes. You might be wondering, so MC, which do you like better? Especially since I might pick a clickbaity title like The Movie You Should Watch Instead of Rocky Horror. But to be completely honest, I think these are very different movies, and comparing them is a disservice to them both. You get something different from each of them. Phantom of the Paradise is a very deep emotional piece. Its homages tend to be from classic literature. Rocky Horror is fairly fluffy and sends up B-movies. Despite Rocky Horror being the one with horror in the title, Phantom is far more based on horror, while Rocky is immersed in science fiction. Even the music is different. While Phantom of the Paradise uses diegetic music, having the performances actually be performances, Rocky Horror Picture Show exists in a musical world. Singing in that movie is a way to convey emotional beats. Because of this, just the feel of the music is different. I will admit, I think Phantom of the Paradise has the stronger music. Just as songs, I enjoy them more. I'm more likely to listen to the Phantom of the Paradise album. That's not to say there's not a place for Rocky. Science fiction double feature is my go-to karaoke song. And that's the dividing line. I wouldn't try to sing anything from Phantom. Phantom is a movie I want to watch. Rocky Horror is an event I want to interact with. While there's been attempts to shadowcast Phantom, just like they do with Rocky, the results are iffy because that's just not the type of movie it is. I think there's room for both of these films to exist. I mean, one of them appeals to my outsider nature and has music that tears at my soul. And the other pulls at the queer little girl in me and has Tim Curry in his prime being everything you want him to be. To me, they're the difference of Star Wars and Star Trek. They're not the same thing, despite some surface similarities. I love them both for different reasons, and when people try to pit them against each other, I get a little cranky. But Phantom of the Paradise does have one more thing in common with Rocky Horror. It endures. In rewatching Phantom of the Paradise for this retrospective, I was struck by how timeless it really was. Yes, there are trappings of the era, but the core of it is even truer today than it was back then. This is a movie about a man being used and abused by the music industry for his talents. That is happening all the time now, with artists not being able to profit off their music due to streaming services like Spotify. Ironically, Paul Williams is actually a huge advocate for artists' rights. As De Palma was inspired by his own experience in the film industry, all of this doesn't just apply to musicians, but to artists of all stripes. How many creative people have felt like Winslow, ignored in favor of some soulless performer, unable to have a voice doing the thing we love, even though we feel we're really good at doing it? Paul Williams' favorite line in the movie about an assassination on stage being entertainment also rings tragically too true. These days, we have the 24-hour news cycle where people want every single detail about a disaster. When celebrities die in tragedies, people want to see what happened, like the photos that got leaked from Kobe Bryant's helicopter crash. And a movie about an outsider, wanting desperately to be loved despite nearly impossible odds, is always going to resonate. It's been 45 years since Phantom of the Paradise was released. In that time, the enthusiasm in Winnipeg grew enough to host Phantom Palooza 3 times, reuniting members of the cast for a celebration of the film. But Winnipeg wasn't the only place with weird outsiders that felt a connection to this film. Guillermo del Toro counts this as one of his favorite movies. He has befriended Paul Williams and sat down with him for an hour-long conversation with him on the Phantom Blu-ray. He even gave Phantom one of the highest compliments possible. Reference on The Simpsons. While the enthusiasm there wasn't as intense or random as it was in Winnipeg, weirdos in Paris also loved Phantom of the Paradise. Notably, there were 2 weirdos. When they formed their music duo in 1993, they chose to use Winslow's Phantom as part of their aesthetic. Thus, Daft Punk was born. Like Del Toro, they also formed a kinship with Williams, working with him on Random Access Memories. They also met with De Palma with the hope of doing some sort of Phantom of the Paradise project, although it seems like nothing has come of that. And while I might not be as famous as some of the other fans, I will always love Phantom of the Paradise. I knew as soon as I saw it, alone in a darkened room, captivated by the music and the tragic story, that it would be something that would remain with me. It brought out something in me. Old emotions, may they rest in peace. And dream. Dream a bunch of friends. Rest in peace and dream. A dream that never ends. So happy Halloween, guys. I hope you enjoyed this video. It was a lot of work. This has been my most ambitious project yet. If you liked this video, please do so below and subscribe to my channel. I'm going to be trying to do lots of other weird and wonderful things about popular culture, Star Trek, Star Wars, Sherlock, Supernatural, maybe some other cult musicals. Yeah, you'll get your turn there, Jareth. If you like what I do, you can support me on Patreon or you can buy me a coffee. You can also go to TeePublic and RedBubble and buy my shirts. Today I am wearing Happy Beeps Buddy, only because I didn't have a Death Records shirt and I thought BB-8 kind of looked like a pumpkin. Until next time, live long and may the force be with you.